Well, thanks for your company here on Richo. In our city studio, is Robert Borsak. He's a Shooters MP, Shooters Party MP in the Upper House in New South Wales. Welcome to the program.
Yeah, hi Richo.
Now, first thing, given that you're a shooter, let's talk about gun laws. I mean, I hear Donald Trump say the best way to stop school shootings is to arm the teachers, which I find ridiculous. What sort of stance do you take on these issues, Robert?
Look, our stance is pretty clear, and that is that you know what might be appropriate in America. They've got a different culture, different constitution. We don't have that culture in Australia, so we wouldn't, for example, be ever advocating for teachers to be armed in Australia because there's just no need to. The way our society is run, our schools, it's not necessary, and we would not be supporting that sort of thing.
Now, in terms of the gun laws as they are you happy with them? And it seems to me that they don't appear to be a big issue at the moment.
Well, look, the simple answer to that is no, we're not happy with them. The NFA and what's been going on really for the last 20 years has really been putting the emphasis of the propaganda, if you like, and also the money in the wrong areas. It's been pumping a lot of money into the regulation of law-abiding citizens in the vain hope that controlling law-abiding citizens through gun laws somehow controls crime, and even worse, it somehow will also control terrorism. It doesn't. And I think we're learning those hard lessons now.
Well, crooks will always find a way to import guns, but I don't think too many of your members are doing it the way they're doing it.
No, well, our members, generally don't import guns at all. The real issue is the porous nature of our borders in Australia, and we're finding that, and you would have seen it too, that there's all sorts of Glocks and God knows what else coming through the borders, in bits and pieces, through the mail, you name it. None of that's really being properly addressed, not as far as we can see anyway. No,
it's going to be pretty hard to see it being done as well. Well, when John Howard got up and made the stance that he made back in the 90s, where did you stand on that?
Well, we thought it was over the top. We think that it wasn't necessary to go grabbing every semi-auto, every pump action, and then go through massive buybacks. And the way we look at it, they were really just confiscations, and all they did was throw a bit of money at us. But even worse than that, they removed the right to self-defence completely from any Australian. And again, those things are gone. You can't get them back too easily. We don't like to see that continue. Our party's got a background of advocating for self-defence. We've done that. John Tingle introduced two bills and had them passed in the New South Wales Parliament, dealing with the home invasion bill and the worker protection bill for criminals attacking workers in their workplace. So we're very much in line with making sure that the old, the infirm and the young have the ability to be protected, not just to wait around for criminals to do their duty and then in turn see that they can't protect themselves.
Well, one last question on that issue then. Just in something you just mentioned, it strikes me as odd you'd worry about semi-automatics. Why do you need a semi-automatic weapon?
Well, look, for a start, they're not weapons in that sense. Everyone, when you talk about semi-automatics, they think immediately about military-style firearms. The reality is that in Australia, all you really can do for the majority of shooters, probably 85% of shooters, you can own a firearm for hunting or vermin control. They're the two major reasons. And the third one usually relates to farming and and there's a fourth one as well, to do with target shooting. Now, for all those except for target shooting, there's a good reason why it would be good to have a second and third and fourth follow-up shots. It doesn't automatically mean that because you have one of those firearms you're automatically going to be a dangerous person. The New Zealand examples show all of that. The licensing, background checks, criminal checks, etc. that go on in Australia show, just as it could be and is happening in New Zealand, that a person like me, who's been a licensed shooter for over 45 years, is no danger to society, and we see that in New Zealand all the time. People have self-loading firearms. They're not automatic in the sense of what you would think is a military-type firearm. They're just self-loading, that's all.
Yeah, someone like me who's just never fired a gun finds it all a bit strange, and I don't want to fire one, I might say. I think I'm probably better off leaving them alone. Can we turn to this issue of ICAC, the Independent Commission Against Corruption in New South Wales, which I think has had, shall we say, a pretty poor time over the last few months. And I wonder how an oversight committee, which I think you're the chair, are you not?
No.
So you're a senior member of it anyway, because I keep reading about you. what is going to be done about ICAC? Because it seems to me the government and the opposition don't want to talk about it, despite the fact that there have been some glaring opportunities and mistakes that they've made, and no one seems to want to do anything about it.
Yeah, well, just to get it right for a sec there, Richo, I tried to get elected to the Joint Standing Committee on ICAC, but I didn't get elected. I missed out by one vote, so someone somewhere didn't like me being on there. But look, the reality of what you say is right. I think we're seeing a situation where both sides of politics, the major parties, have been badly hurt by ICAC politically in recent years, and both don't want to be seen to be doing anything that may be politically reflecting adversely on them. So
yeah,
I
get that, but then there are a couple of examples. Now I've only met Mike Gallagher, who was formerly the leader of the House in which you sit. I've only met him once, right? Once. So he's not a mate of mine. I'm not defending a friend. The time I met him was at Frank Walker's funeral, I think. But one wonders, I've tried to find out all that I can. I can't see that ICAC's ever produced a scintilla of evidence that he's done something wrong, and yet he loses his job, he's kicked out of his party, and he spends years in the wilderness still there. I mean, what hope is there for someone like that?
Well, I think there's almost no hope for someone like him. He's still in the Parliament, obviously. He's sitting on the crossbenches. He still votes with the government. I think he's still in the party, but he certainly lost all position and power that he had before. And he had a brilliant career. He was a very, very great leader of the government in our House. It's very, very difficult for him. I mean, just the taint of even being a witness at ICAC can destroy a career for you. I think that rules need to be put in place. We need stronger oversight. The Oversight Committee, the Joint Standing Committee that's there now, has real problems. It can't or doesn't seem to be able to, and that was evidenced in the last inquiry they did last year, where they pulled the ICAC Commissioner and a number of others in for a question-answer session in a public hearing. They can't seem to get them to respond. And in fact, we're just seeing now that on the 11th of this month, they're up again for a half-day session with the committee. So it'll be interesting to see whether they get the sort of answers they're looking for.
But there are so many issues to cover.
I think the big thing for ICAC is to figure out what their final oversight and program for control is going to be, because it's a very, very important institution in New South Wales. It's something that we all should support, but I don't think it's been conducting itself in, let's say, a respectful manner when it comes to dealing with the Parliament, or in a fair manner in many ways with the sort of people you're talking about.
Well, not even with the High Court, Robert. I mean, just remember, as soon as the High Court decision came down, they then bucketed the High Court decision. Then they bring out a very long, detailed bucket on Margaret Cunneen, the one they had missed, the one they got rolled over in the High Court. So they just attack all the time. When they're beaten, they're like spoilt children. But it's worse than that. I mean, there are things that don't get investigated. Now, I want to put this one to you. There's Kate McClymont at the Sydney Morning Herald has been the beneficiary of leaks from ICAC for the last 2 decades at least. And there are stunning examples all over the place of this. And yet that doesn't seem to ever be worth an investigation. Every time one of those leaks is made, not her, she's not committing a crime, but the person at ICAC leaking to her is, and yet that seems to go completely untested and no one wants to look at it.
That's right. You just wonder who's watching the watchers, don't you? Who's policing the police in this sort of thing? And that's what I'm talking about. I mean, what are the ground rules? We've had ICAC in place now for over 30 years. It's getting more power, not less power, more money, not less money, and yet now it just seems to be almost careering in some areas out of control. Like the whole management perception, as you rightly say, is almost sneering when it comes to scrutiny, either whether it's from the media or from parliamentary committees or even people like me.
Or even Levine, who's the person who's supposed to look after them.
Yeah, that's right. Look, you raise a very interesting point there. Justice Levine is an important man in the sense that he has the role of inspector of ICAC, but you only got to look at his resourcing. I think he's effectively a part-time inspector. He's got 2 days a week with a couple of offsiders. He's done some major reports. I think he's just indicated he wants to do 2 more. Into these 2 large recent inquiries of ICAC, looking at all the sort of things we're talking about. But his tenure finishes in January next year, so I'm informed. So, you know, he won't even get halfway through one of those inquiries, let alone with that sort of resourcing. So we throw a lot of money into ICAC, but as I was talking about before, the oversight and control doesn't seem to be getting any extra help.
Indeed, and of course all we get from both the government and the opposition is silence. Look, I've got to leave it there. I could talk about it so much longer. We might do this again after that committee's had its next hearing, and we'll see where we stand. Thank you very much for your time, Robert.
Thanks very much, Richo.
Robert Borsak from the Shooters Party in New South Wales will be back in just a moment with Ben Swan, the Secretary of the AWU in Queensland, to talk about the Townsville refinery and Clive Palmer.